You're listening to The View from Up Here, an equipping podcast by Viewpoint Leadership and Development. Our vision is to cultivate a change in the way the world views leadership and development, and our mission is to foster better leaders through a modern approach while developing individuals into their true selves. My name's Brad Walbridge, your host for our time together, and joining me in our conversations is our president and founder, Josh Trout, and our COO, Joel Arcieri.
The cool factor of the podcast has gone up because welcome to the View from Up Here podcast. We have a Scottish man on the podcast. I am your host for today, Joel Arcieri. I am the COO of Viewpoint Leadership and Development. Today, I do not have Josh Trout, our founder, or the hostess with the mostest, Brad Walbridge. But, like I said, we have a Scottish lad over here, John Brockes. He's a multiple author, published author. You have multiple articles published in magazines. Yep. You are a thought leader in the world of leadership and development. Yep. And I'm also joined by a good friend of the show, Andy Garrison, the host of the We Think We Talk podcast. You can find it on all platforms where you stream. So thank you guys both for being here.
It's Absolutely. A pleasure. It's a pleasure, and it's actually a pleasure to hear your Scottish accent because it's about the closest I've heard. It's not bad actually. You've got a really good twang.
I know. Seriously, give me some more butter. Butter me up, sir.
Wow.
Call me a croissant. All right. Well, today I want to talk. I mean, because you are like, it was such a one of. I don't want to kind of give people the idea how we met because it's like, how do I know this random Scottish guy? It was. You love to go to Chestnut, which is a great coffee shop locally here in Greenville. Yeah. And you love to go there on Fridays and just work on writing. Right, because you either are writing or you're critiquing other people's writings. Yeah. And so I remember I went to Chestnut because it was my wife's, basically she goes to a hotel every like 6 months to get away from the family and the kids. And it was her hotel weekend, and she said, because it's our birthday, you can come. But you can't arrive until like, but she said you can't arrive until a certain time. So I was sitting around there going like, well, what am I going to do? So I went to Chestnut, and you were sitting in that area where there's 2 chairs and a couch. Yeah. And you know that awkward moment when you're in a coffee shop and you go, do I ask the person, can I sit there? And you had earbuds in. So I'm like, what do you do? So I just said, hey, can I sit there? And you went, oh yeah, it's great. You could sit there. And I was like, hold on, wait.
that actually almost sounded Northern Irish there.
This conversation just got way too. I can't just pass this up. And I was like, wait, are you Scottish? And you're like, yeah, I am Scottish. And that kind of started the conversation. That's right. Yeah. And you were like, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm just gonna work on like a book that I'm working on. And you're like, I'm a published author, and that's how we met.
That's right.
And then we just connected on that. We share philosophies of leadership and development, which is just the cool thing about if you are someone who's a leader and you care about that. I mean, you'll find that there are more people that are alike than divided in this. And I think if you put yourself out there, you'll find people like that. Yeah. You'll establish these connections, which even now, because of our connection, you've got a connection.
I got a body.
But so like, tell us about, why you do this, what you do. You coach people, you help with leadership and development. Like, what do you do in that world?
I tend to shy away from the term coach. Everybody understands as a coach. Right. I prefer to use the term a mentor.
I like that, yeah.
Because if there's 101 coaches around about you, and very few of them have got experience of life. And so I like to use the term mentorship. So what I like to do is to say that I mentor people. And I maintain, as we spoke, that one deep insight into a leader can change the whole trajectory of their business, their life. It can be transformational. So for me, I like working one-to-one with leaders, and those leaders who are leading essentially other people and bringing the new leaders forward. And so if I inspire one, or I show them, or I make them awaken to what's inside of them that they perhaps don't see, then what kind of impact can they have on our leaders that are coming up? Yeah. And that's what we need. I'm not looking at him that I'm leading, that I'm helping. I'm looking at the next generation.
Well,
we just had
the director of marketing communications of the association, American Heart Association, that's been around for 100 years,
right?
Because of those people who focused on that. What's the impact? like we have people that you can see, and I love that you're doing that because you're playing the long game.
Yeah.
And that's so beautiful. And I love when we talked, one of the things you said is you're in the business of sowing seeds in people's hearts.
Yeah.
Like, what did you mean by that when you said
Well,
that?
I don't, a lot of people, when they look towards a mentor or a coach, they kind of idolize them or they put them up on some kind of pedestal. So I like to think of it, there's a brilliant book out there called The Enlightened Gardener. And if you've read it, so The Enlightened Gardener, it's an amazing book. And so I tend to think of myself as a gardener. I don't want to give everybody the answers. I want to plant the seed and I want to educate them to find the answers for themselves.
Yeah.
Because that's essentially what I had to do.
Yeah.
What I want to do, though, is I want to plant the seeds in their hearts and show them how to tend the seeds with love and compassion and care, and to grow a beautiful plant, a beautiful tree, a beautiful flower, rather than to grow it and let it be strangled full of weeds, which is really their mind. And if their mind's not in the right place, then, the mind is the psychological building blocks of reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you don't understand the mind in leadership, you can't lead.
So have you ever had a time, so when you were coaching someone, and let's say you got to them when they were in the weeds, what was that like, and how did you help them get out?
I think we spoke about this a little bit when we were chatting, but for me, it's almost like the best analogy I can give is that they're in a well, they're in a prison, and they're looking outside at the little window, and they're looking up and they're seeing the moon, and they long to get out there. And for me, when they realize that they're a seed and they're a beautiful plant and they've got everything there, they recognize and they awaken to the fact that the door was always opened and all they needed to do was walk outside of it to enjoy it. Because they create the prison of their mind. They create their own prison in self. So when they realize...
He's deep. That's what we got to
So when they realize that they've got an inherent power within them, whether you call it a divine power, spiritual power, anything,
Yeah.
that is really you can only be, if you want to experience freedom, ladies and gentlemen, you can only experience freedom in your mind. Because we are not free in the material world, we're not free in this world, but we are free in the mind.
We're beholden to something at
Exactly.
all times.
We're attached to expectations, attachments, perceptions. But when we're truly free, it's our mind that we need to work upon.
Yeah.
So to really get them opened, to
You're making me look great for bringing you on this podcast. That's great.
No, I'm already feeling it.
Keep going. Keep going.
So for them to have a realization, it's almost like the sunshine has replaced the moon and everything lights up for them.
Yeah.
And they can finally see clarity and truth.
Yeah.
That's what it's like for them.
You've been pushing me to continue to go forward with writing a book on mantra, right? And I've really appreciated that. And as I've kind of been looking at and kind of scoping it out, writing some things, one of the things I did similarly thought about was why people end up in that prison. And one of the thoughts was, so with mantra, it's all about surety, positivity, and altruism. Surety meaning you know yourself. Positivity meaning you're positive about yourself and the world around you. And then altruism meaning like you care more about the betterment of others, not yourself. And thinking about surety, I thought about the fact that people often will take the path towards a better self in rather not their true self because it fits better for the situation that they're in, right? So they go, well, this is the better self for being at this place or this company. Or if I'm trying to get here, I should take the better self path. And so they keep going in these crossroads and they keep picking the better self. And then years down the road, they're looking in the mirror and they don't know their true self anymore. They just seen their better self and they're like, I don't know who I am anymore. Yeah. And I think that's why people end up in those prisons, because they've been choosing what they think would best fit a situation, not who they really are, and what would help them become a better person in themselves and who they truly are. So when you think about that, though, what is the thing that you felt like as you've helped people see the doors open the whole time of your prison? What were the things that you've said to people, or the things that you might have mentioned that really gave them the aha moment?
I use an analogy with a lot of people about the Keurig effect, right? So we have this Keurig effect.
I do not like Keurigs. As someone who's as Synergy
Keurigs
Coffee
listen
is
to
here.
this.
Synergy Coffee, we don't do Keurigs. I just want to say it.
But I will say the Keurig. Everybody, if you want a really good coffee, you go to a coffee shop. You have, someone makes you something. They put time, the effort, they put love into it. Okay, and the reality is that people want an instantaneous high, right? So we go straight to the pod, we go straight to the coffee, and we don't know where it's come from. We don't know what love has been put into it. We don't know the energy that's been put into it. And we are so used to in this life, I want it now.
Yeah.
I don't want to wait for it, I want it now. I don't want to work for it. I don't want to serve for it. And the greatest gift that we can give humanity is the gift of service. So really the big aha moment for anybody who's working with me is to realize that it's not about them, it's about who they serve.
Yeah, exactly. That's that altruistic
That's
aspect.
the altruism.
Yeah.
Because if you serve, and you serve with an open heart, and you serve without expectation, and you serve without limitation, and you serve without, looking to get something back just to make someone else's life better, divine law, dude, it's going to come back to you.
And it draws people in.
And it draws people
Right.
in.
When you're altruistic, so you're others-centric, people then are pulled towards you because
Absolutely.
it's attractive. No one likes to be around selfish people who make it all about themselves. But if you make it about others, people are like, well, I want to be towards you. So what you thought was actually making it further away from you actually drew people in to being more interested in you because you're altruistic. Yeah, I love that.
It's a firefly. It's a moth, and it's a firefly.
Yeah.
Essentially, if your light shines, you're going to attract beauty there.
So, you've been coaching and mentoring people for a while. You've been writing for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, when did you come over to the States to write? Wasn't it, I think it was
12 years ago.
12 years ago. So you've been in America for long enough to kind of see the prevailing culture within leadership. What do you think is one of the worst parts about kind of where we are as an American culture when it comes to leadership and development? And then, what's a good thing? So give me a good and a bad.
Leaders don't know who they are.
True.
Thank you for listening to the View from Up Here podcast. I'm kidding.
No, I mean, I don't know that I've heard it stated just that.
Well, when he has a
honest.
Scottish accent, it helps too. Leaders don't know
But
who
is
they
it-
are.
But is it not true?
No, it's completely true.
Wow.
Leaders don't know who they are.
Yeah.
But what I will say is certainly in American culture, especially in leadership, is they're happy to see other people succeed. Where I found in other places in the world, there's even and I hate to say this, guys, but in Britain, there's a very much like, I could have done that better, or I could get that better, or not. Oh my God, that's amazing. You've written a book. I'd love to read it. Or it's a simple thing. Is like here an example. I buy a new car. Someone says, "God, I love your car, Jock. Where did you get it?" And we talk about it. I love the color. I love this. Well, back in blight years in other countries, it's like, how much did you pay for it? I could have got that cheaper. Why didn't you come to me?
Could've spent your money somewhere else.
I find the American community more open to dialogue, and I find them more, friendlier in terms of supporting you and supporting your success.
So it's interesting too, because to an American, we wouldn't necessarily go there first. We wouldn't think that people are more open to dialogue, because all you hear right now is people are closed off. It's all about you.
Right.
But I love that you say that. You
just
actually,
perception.
Yeah, you feel like you perceive a little bit differently.
And it is everybody else's perception, because everybody else is attached to something. Whether they're attached to an outcome, whether they're attached to a political argument, whether they're attached to it. There's a thing that I always say, and I teach people, is people say to me, "Do you believe in something?" I say, "No, I don't. I don't believe in nothing. If I don't know it, there's no need for me to believe it, because if I believe it, it means there's room for interpretation."
So you say, I don't believe in things, I know things.
I know things.
Yeah.
Because in belief,
It's-
essentially, if you say to me, this is the way it is, and I believe you, I'm believing in your perception.
Right.
That's your perception.
Yes.
But then, because of social engineering and the way that we are socially, we tend to then accept that. Well, it must be right. But it doesn't not necessarily mean that that's the truth. So then I tend to teach people is you've got to come to a place of knowing. You've got to come to a place of understanding and knowing. So I don't believe in anything.
Yeah.
I'll question until the wisdom opens up and I come to know.
Yeah.
And when I know, that's in my heart and my soul. That's deep inside of me. There is no room for error.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's one of the reasons why you and I have gelled, because that's the surety part for me. There's the altruism, right? So I think the other question that I would ask you though is, and I love asking Andy this, I love asking any leader, right, who wants to do this, who wants to invest in other people. Why? you don't really get, unless you're a top person, keynote speaker, not getting paid a ton, like, you're writing books to help people out. Why do you care so much about helping others develop?
Simple answer. Why not?
Can we stop giving me these thank you for listening to the reviews? What do you mean, why not? Expound on that.
Why not? Why not serve? I mean, the greatest, the greatest gift that, as I said, that we can give is service to people.
Yeah.
There's an innate kindness in people. Sometimes it's lost, but it's lost because people suffer. And hurt people. And we don't know people's stories. We don't know the battles that are going on inside of people. We don't know the battles that are raging on because we can't see inside of them.
Yeah.
Well, you can if you open up and you get connection and communication. There's more disconnection in this world.
Yeah.
But if I can be a little stepping stone on a little river that helps someone over to the other side so that they can live their best life, so that they can serve, why on God's earth would I not do it?
That's true. Yeah. So it's funny that you say hurt people. I say that in the book I'm working on. But then I also say the inverse is the same. Healed people heal people, right? Like
Absolutely.
Those who have been healed, who have worked through things, they can help heal others because they know what it's like. So you can empathize with someone, and empathy is what helps the service. Because if you don't see a need unless you empathize with a need. Sympathy is fine, but knowing it, like you said, not just believing, oh, that's an issue, but knowing that there's an issue leads you to have empathy. Andy, you are being absolutely bombarded by tweetable moments right now.
I'm loving
what do you
this.
think? What do you think about all the things that he's been saying? Why is it so refreshing to you?
Because obviously when you want someone, regardless of what level you're at in your life, you need a mentor because no one is omnipotent. I know no one with all the answers.
No.
And many of us, and I use the word us, we sometimes know who we are, but sometimes we also forget who we are.
True. Yeah.
You personally, what I like is you came here 12 years ago, so you came from a different region with a different perception, with a different set of morals, a different set of standards, and so you've got to your counterbalance, if you will. So you get to honestly inspect us almost with a microscope from things that unfortunately we take for granted and we don't even see anymore.
That's really true.
So you can go so much deeper. You're almost like washing your hands versus using 99% alcohol. We're still doing the same thing, but you're getting a little deeper and cleaner because you've had the opportunity in your life to see. And the book you mentioned is very good because you take pride.
Oh yeah.
And start doing that. And you even made the comment, why not help other people? Well, what you're doing is also you're self-serving you because there's something very important about all human, regardless of where you're at or from, that gives you self-awareness and self-happiness.
Absolutely.
And self-joy.
Yeah.
And you can't help others unless you're happy within you. And the others give you happiness.
That's right.
It's you deposit and withdraw evenly. And I like that. But the biggest thing that really, other than off the camera, because we've got hours to go, very interesting. But here's what I love, and I believe how I can sum up what I feel that you do. And this is a principle in my life. Principles don't ever change.
Right.
Principles are fact, right? We know the truth.
Yeah.
You're the type guy that I absolutely would go to because I never take direction from someone that hasn't been to where I want to go.
Right. That's that empathy. They can empathize.
Right.
I think the other important thing is to recognize, guys, is that we mentor and we coach what we need to develop.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. If we are not,
Absolutely.
if we as mentors and coaches don't look at a client or a person that you're mentoring and think that you know it all, then you've failed straight away.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
But if I go into that and know that whatever comes up in them, I know that it's part of my it's part of my personal growth.
Yeah.
It's part of learning to know who I am.
Yeah.
And so as I mentor them, I'm also mentoring myself.
Yes.
Right.
And so I'm developing with them.
And I think what I like is when you agree to mentor, you know the stress, the weights, and everything that now you've put on yourself, and that huge burden and responsibility.
Yeah.
So you have no choice but to continue self-growth for your own self, because it's almost like a school teacher. You're getting ready to teach a subject, so you probably need to study the day before you try to teach the class. So you have to have really deep introspection within yourself before the day of the phone call or with the other person, because you have to be right with yourself before you can help be right with someone else. And that's a lot of dedication on your end, because plus writing books, plus reading other people and not criticizing them, but you know, hey, this is almost right.
Right.
You know, let me share what I know, because you
And
may
that's
know
how
the
we
truth.
and that's how we plant the seeds.
That's
the other thing is, another great analogy I use all the time is that I've studied martial arts for many years. I have an 8th degree black belt level in martial arts.
Adding to his cool factor, by the way.
So, but here's the thing: that really means nothing, because at the end of the day, a black belt is only a dirty white belt with experience.
That's right.
Ooh.
So we're always
Tweet that.
Someone with a black belt's really upset right now. They're like,
I'll take him on. I'll take him on.
He's calling Chuck Norris come on, Chuck.
You know, at the end of the day, it's we're always beginners, and if we realize that we are never above anybody, and if I put my hand out to someone to accept them, I want to pull them up so that they can look me in the eye. I don't want to put my hand out so I can take from them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting too, because it's easy to think when you're a part of, like, let's say a big company, so like Cisco, Microsoft, these big companies, and you look at, let's say you don't have a good management structure, right? And you look above you, and it seems like it's when you look above, you see obstacles, not people who help you. How defeating that can be, especially for the young person. So if you're young listening to this and you're in your journey, and you're at one of those companies, or not a big company, or a smaller company, and you feel like when you look up, there's obstacles. I mean, these types of interactions are the things that can help you. It's not that we get you the job for you. It's not Viewpoint or John Brockes that just change your job for you, but it's changing your perspective and saying, okay, that may be the case, that they are someone who's like, you're not going to move above me. I'm always going to be above. But you could still change your perspective. And that could then maybe change the way you approach it. And you might get something else as a result.
Well, you might learn who you are.
Exactly. But if you didn't, you might stay that way forever, or for an extended period of time, negatively impacting the people around you. And I think that's why it's so important, because there are people, like you said, and like we've talked about, there are people who are in corporate America right now, or in companies, or in places right now, who are wrestling with, because they don't know who they are, and they have a negative outlook, and they need someone to come alongside them. And if that's you, do not feel like you're alone, because like you said, we're mentoring ourselves in the midst of those conversations, right? And I even think about, I have these conversations often with younger guys at like Cisco, because in the brief time that I've been there, I've moved up quickly because I just navigated the waters differently. And these guys, and what I try to tell them though, is if you're desperate and you're selfish, your reputation will precede you. Yes. And there are people at my company who are kind of in the same boat as me, who are always saying, I need a promotion. Like, I've proved my worth. Where's my promotion? When can I get a promotion? And when I would have conversations with other people who would know them, who are higher up, so higher up peers would say, yeah, that's all they talk about. And I'm going, you've already shot yourself in the foot. That's what you're known for. Your reputation now precedes you, whereas I don't want that to be the case for me. No. Now, I will talk about with my manager, and we've had great conversations where I'm like, look, you know what I want to do. I want to manage people. I want to do this kinds of stuff like this, because this is what I love to do, not I'm worth this. That reputation is more positive. And that's what you were saying. If you're only known as the negative person who only sees obstacles, you're going to withhold opportunities from yourself.
I think it's important as well, and I'll pick a point that I've picked up about you. Here's it, not buttering up around but one of the biggest things.
I don't think anyone understood what you just said.
One of the biggest things that's missing in corporate America for leaders, and actually we're talking about leaders here, but I'm going to give a tip to people who are looking to be mentored by leaders.
Love it.
Look for the leader who has the most compassion. Because that's the difference in the way that you do. From the very short time I've known you, you have a compassionate heart.
Oh, thank you.
Right? So in your compassion, people will be attracted to you, and you will mentor them and you will bring them up. And that's what's missing in leadership in corporate America.
Yeah.
Is compassion.
Yeah, it's not there. I mean,
they don't even know what it is.
No, it's interesting so I'm now in supply chain, and we had a VP leave who was known for not being compassionate.
No.
And we now have a new VP who is known for being compassionate. And I think one of the differences was this guy was an intern at Cisco when I was 5 years old. And he has been there ever since and has moved his way up to that. And I think because this is what we're kind of talking about, he remembers what it's like to be an intern at the bottom of a company.
That's it.
He remembers what it's like to be the person at the bottom who had dreams, had thoughts, had desires, and didn't have opportunity and had to do things the hard way.
Yeah.
But it's not as if he's now the VP and he doesn't care. He goes, I remember what it was like. So like you said, for you, when I asked you, why do you care so much? You're like, why not? For him, why are you so great to people underneath you? Why wouldn't I be? I was there.
Exactly.
Because he remembers what his garden looks like before it was a garden.
That's it.
Look,
yes.
the gardening analogy, right back to it. Look at you.
I've read the book.
No, what were you about to say? Sorry, yeah.
No, absolutely, what you're saying is perfect. And I also think that I'll give you another example in the military. So when I served in the British military,
another thing to add to his cool factor.
Scottish Army. I had a CEO who was a young guy, and he had just come straight out of university, and the guys were like, "What the heck? He's only been in 10 minutes. What does he know to lead us into battle?" And then we had, Sergeant Major Harvison, who had been we call them rankers. Notice I said rankers, ladies and gentlemen, just in case my accent picks that up wrong. But he was a ranker, and that means he was going through the ranks.
Yes.
So he had been at the bottom of the ladder. He was the private that had gone all the way up. And we all gravitated to him because he had the experience, and he had the compassion, and he had the leadership.
That's right.
That's an important factor.
So we've talked about this a lot, and I think, Andy, I would love to hear your perspective too. Okay, the compassionate leader draws more people.
Absolutely.
Right? It has more impact.
Yeah.
How does one become compassionate?
In my opinion, and I would say this for me, I would like to think I'm a compassionate person.
I would say.
Just because I genuinely care about other people. And it all started through a hiring process.
Yeah.
When I had, because I started at the bottom of the ranks. I never tell that story a whole lot, but I didn't start at the top. I literally started at the very bottom and worked every day to that top. I think it's important. I can fill out a financial plan just as well as I can mop the building. And I think it's very important that I know to do that. But at the same time, with compassion, it's almost like you need to break that word down, because compassion is nothing more than you owning a box full of emotions, of being understanding, but also controlling what you allow out of that box.
That's good.
Because a compassionate leader is two people. You're physically one person, but you're not tending the garden for them, as you said.
Yeah.
But what you're doing is you're helping setting them on the right path.
Right.
But you're not walking them completely down the path, because you also want them to be a compassionate leader. You have to have been through some stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
But if you're too compassionate, therefore, I've took you down the trail by your hand, so you never stubbed your toe. So you'll never truly have the full box of everything it takes to be compassionate.
Right.
So therefore, the achievements of crossing over the bridge and the pond and things yourself, you've had to earn that yourself. So I believe it's a title. I believe you have to be compassionate and understanding when someone has a situation, because as you clearly said, one thing that we aren't developed with are eyes that have MRI machines, because you know what?
Inside,
We all right now look, when I say this, we look like we're happy on the outside doing this.
That's fair. Yeah.
But inside, I guarantee you, out of one of the three of us, there's something that we are worried about.
Yeah.
Well, every single person I think has got that problem.
And if you're a compassionate leader,
You feel that.
and you can look into the eyes of their soul, and maybe their performance has just dropped a little, instead of you dropping the hammer about performance, maybe you just now have enough technique to actually have a different type conversation.
Yeah.
Because their performance is secondary to what's going on.
So-
and you not be concerned about your self-growth or them or them taking your job, because once again, if you're going to cultivate someone, be compassionate towards someone, you want to applaud in their successes and see them grow as far as they possibly can and be willing to accept even if that's past where you are.
Yeah. So the question though is,
Yes, I probably went past
No, you're great. All of that is fantastic. And that's incredible about, okay, how do you approach them when, seeing there's something always underneath it, right? Okay, but here's the question though. High-level leader. You're a high-level leader in a company. Let's say you're VP, director, CEO, you name it. And you want to be compassionate. But how do you balance though? Like, your employees aren't going to always like you. They're going to say some mean things.
Absolutely.
Heck, if they send reviews to you and you get shown reviews and you're like, what? I didn't know I was like. How do you balance that though? Because I feel like when you are compassionate, there is a propensity to be overly compassionate and not just saying, I'm going to help you down the road, but get easily hurt, or you're vulnerable. You're having to be more vulnerable. How do you balance that? I mean, obviously you, but also
Boundaries.
Okay.
I have past employees that I'm sure hate me right now.
Yeah.
And the simple fact that I've come to terms with is it wasn't that I was not compassionate. They weren't willing to open up 50% to be with me. Because obviously they didn't have a respect or truly see, or they did not want to hear the truth that I was trying to say. See, because just because you offer compassion, someone has to be willing to accept it.
Yeah. And you said boundaries. When you said boundaries, what do you mean by that?
Well, boundaries, most people, when they think about boundaries, they build walls, and walls are impenetrable. Sometimes I think what we need to do is to have boundaries that are just lines, or boundaries that are fences that we can see through, because we still want to be able to see what's on the other side.
Yes.
But the other thing is also judgment, because the reality is that the leader who is compassionate and maybe goes down that path that you were saying, they get hurt because it's not because of what's happened to them. It's the way they judge the situation, right? If you can detach yourself from being judgmental of yourself or anything else, you will just serve with an open heart. Yeah. And you will not, it won't affect you. If someone says something bad about you and they talk about you and everything else, and you're like, so be it.
Right. Because you know yourself.
You know yourself because you know yourself.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Which means that you judge, you let go of judgment. You don't judge the situation and you don't judge yourself. You let go of judgment. When you let go of judgment, you can create safe boundaries, and you can have a compassionate heart, and you see the person's heart rather than the person as an individual, as a human. I'm not saying that in a negative way, but I'd rather see someone's heart and soul than I just see what I'm looking at with my eyes.
That's what I was saying, because I like to look into the eyes.
Exactly.
Because I know what their physical body is portraying, but that behavior that they're doing, whether it's the loud voice, the screaming, the mad, I am past that. I know that there's something that is causing that.
Yeah.
I know that's not the behavior that they're doing just towards you.
Yeah.
So that's where the judgment-free, I have to be willing to know there's something causing that. There's a root problem that's causing that. And that's where you guys, at what you do, it's hard. You guys are much better qualified at this than I am. I call it unpacking. It's what I call it.
Yeah.
But it's like the garden. I love that analogy with that book because it's very true to your life.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's a hidden weed sometimes that will strangle the whole root system that you never saw.
Absolutely.
The better you get at helping people and mentoring people, you start to know where that weed is located. You don't even have to really understand what it is, because you know that it's probably the weed, and you learn where they're at.
Exactly.
So you can quickly go in and sort of unstrangle. Doesn't mean that you're not going to have work and prep to bring it back.
Yeah.
But now you have a chance.
Yeah.
And that's where I admire what both of you do.
Boils down to deep awareness.
It
Have
does.
awareness.
Well, it does, and you can you both bring it from a different way.
Yeah.
And that's important.
Yeah, I'd like to bring awareness to our sponsor, which is Sit and Spin Studios. I'm so good at these segues. If you've wondered,
He's begging for more time.
If you've wondered, wait, hold on, how do they get this amazing production quality? Why does his voice sound so butterly smooth? Look at these things behind them, the lighting. Sit and Spin Studios, located in Greenville, upstate South Carolina. If you are in the upstate, heck, if you're across the country and you want a quality recording, video, podcast, album, Sit and Spin Studios. Anyway, so continuing on. I'm getting so good at these sponsor plugs. I'm so good.
Joel.
I am. I do what I can. I think people should start paying me. Anyway, not you Sit and Spin, just other people. But, okay, so I love what we've talked about. And, when you guys were talking about knowing yourself, it made me think about, like, what I've talked about with, like, mantra. So, with, we've talked, I've told you mine, My mantra is, I am someone who is energized by being a refreshment to everyone in every interaction, no matter what. In that, I don't want to drain people. I don't want to burden them. I want to build them up. I want to edify them. I want people to think, can't wait to talk to Joel next time. He's so refreshing.
I love
and
that.
So I think about, okay, let's say I walked myself as a leader through that mantra, and I had someone leave me the worst review, or they came into my office and they're like, I cannot stand the fact that you did this. You're so selfish. You're so about yourself, right? And, I'm a compassionate leader. I'm trying to be compassionate. I would tell that person, hey, what's your mantra? And they would say, I want to be refreshed. I'm energized by being a refreshment. Do you feel like you've been doing that with this person? Yeah. Okay. There's probably something else going on in that situation.
Absolutely.
And it's not you.
No.
And that's the aspect that you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's tangibly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
If you know yourself, and so, like, if you want to get a mantra session in, hit me up. But if you need that, if you need a better awareness of who you are, we walk you through that. And then all we do is just go, okay, who are you? Okay. Does that mean that it's them or you in this situation? Well, probably them. And then you continue to walk forward in surety and positivity and altruism.
Absolutely.
So, but what were you going to say? You?
I was going to say the scary part about the truth of what you do, what Viewpoint does, is you ask that question initially, who are you?
Yeah.
And toward the end of the business relationship, you ask that question again. It's a completely different answer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And that is, there's nothing more beautiful than that, because of somebody actually finding freedom within themselves. There are no bars that can hold you after that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You really become so self-empowered. I hate to use the word arrogant, cocky, because you don't have to even display that. A rich man doesn't have to say he's rich. A blessed man doesn't have to tell you that he's blessed.
He just lives in it.
A free man doesn't have to come out every day and let you know he's free. And once you release that from someone, you can even see it in their posture. You see it in their walk. You see it when they're by themselves. It's kind of like, I hate to reference this because this is probably not even age for me, but what artist says it? I wear both chains even when I'm in the house by myself.
I have no idea.
There's a song, but he's just talking about that he's completely happy within himself.
Yeah.
He enjoys his items. It's not for show for others.
Yeah, yeah.
He enjoys time within himself.
Oh, it's a rap. I was like, what do you mean change? Is this like bondage?
No.
I get it. Now
Okay. So
now I'm getting it.
I need to get you more.
2 chains. Is it 2
Two
chains?
chains. Yes, I need to get. Just remind me to buy you and your wife more hotel time. You're talking bond. You're talking weird. No.
Oh.
But no, I always reflect back
This
to
has
that.
got off the rails, and I love it.
But
Keep it. I don't care.
That's why it's unscripted, because it's great. But me, that little part of when he says that, I've used that now for years, because
You're
what it
so
says.
content with who you are.
What it says to me is, when I'm in the house, I don't have to have others around me anymore to enjoy being with me.
Yeah.
And that is freeing. That is because you don't realize how many years that you've been codependent on what others think. Like if you say something, you ever see people do this? They'll make a comment and they go,
Oh my gosh. I had
Right?
yes,
Right?
I had a friend who would do that with jokes. Like, so if someone made a joke, so if we were sitting in an area and he was in front of me, he would literally, like, someone would say a joke and he'd go, just to see if I laughed. And I'm like, all right, look, I don't like the kind of pressure because then I have to laugh at every joke.
Laugh. It's canned laughter.
Right. Now and I had to develop it. I had to have professionals like you guys to work through with me. But now if I decide to tell a joke and nobody laughs, I'm probably already laughing.
Yeah.
I'm laughing at myself.
All the time.
And so I'm just good with that.
Yeah.
And it's so freeing. It's so, but you know what? I don't think people need to know.
Yeah.
I think
It takes a lot of hard work.
I think people are frightened of silence.
Oh,
I was going to ask
absolutely.
that question of you.
Right? People are frightened of silence. When you can be silent with yourself,
Yeah.
you get to know yourself.
You know.
And you can do it. You can try this. You can sit. I mean, we three can sit here, and we can just sit and look at each other as I'm looking at Joel. You know, and one of us you get uncomfortable and you want to start to say something because we're not comfortable in our silence. Mm-hmm. And silence is the greatest power that you can have. Silence can give you deep insight, can bring you a lot of self-reflection and contemplation, give you lower your heart. If you want to talk physical, can lower your heart rate, can help you live healthier, can give you better sleep. We are too frightened to be silent. We're frightened to be silent with ourselves. And I think if we all spent a little bit of time with ourselves, in contemplation with ourselves, the world would be a better place.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was going to ask you that question because I feel as if we fill our so why we don't learn ourselves or be more content with who we are or sit in silence is because we just fill our time with everything and anything, right? We avoid the time that we would have to, that would be awkward because we haven't spent time with ourselves to do so. And I think it's a missing factor in a lot of kind of where we are as a culture within, even just in leadership and development, but just in general, we're not comfortable with silence because, but I also think it's also because we don't have the handles. And that's the sad part too. Not everyone has the handles that when you're quiet, you think to yourself, let me process through things. So like you and I, because we have schooling, right? Yeah. So master's in psychology. You also you're in your PhD right now.
Yeah, I'm on a PhD track for the next 4 years.
Yeah, so we have lived introspection because it was literally a part of our schooling. Yeah. And then our personalities have lent ourselves to go that way too. Not everyone is like that. Not saying we're better than other people, but not everyone is more just generally introspective by nature. And it's scary. So it's not just uncomfortable and like, I don't want to do it. It's just, what do I do when I have a thought, right? What do you do when you have that thought of realization of maybe you aren't where you want to be? Maybe you did mess things up more than you thought. And you spent more time to think about it. Wow, I actually really did botch that aspect of my life. Yeah. And then you start to have those feelings of regret that are not light. They're very heavy, but you don't have the handles. Now, obviously, reach out to one of us, to someone who can mentor you. Yeah, but what would you say to that person right now who might be listening, who's like, that's me. I don't have handles, right? Other than reach out to one of us. Like, what's something you would give them now?
I would tell them if they were struggling right now.
You can look at the camera too.
I would say,
this one's yours right here.
This is the camera. We've got 3 cameras on one. Okay, so if we were struggling right now, one of probably the greatest tools I can give you is to ask yourself the question that did your thoughts come from your mind? And if they did, you have the power over them. So you have to become more aware of your thoughts, and you have to identify whether those thoughts are negative or positive. That all comes with self-awareness, and that always comes with knowing yourself. So the tool that I will give you is to work on your thought processes, to work on identifying your thoughts. And what came first? That's the thing. What came first, the chicken or the eggs? What came first, the thought or the mind? The mind is the building blocks of reality. Your thought is an expression of the mind. You have power over the thought. Choose wisely.
I love that. So are you a cognitive behavioral therapist kind of leaning? I think that's it, because that's the negative thought process. That was psych nerds here. I'm remembering that.
I'm going to pull out my credit card.
I kind of like Adler as well. Adler's really
Yes, that
Jung
was-
and Adler.
Yes.
There's a book that was released recently, actually, 2 of the books, an Adlerian psychology
Yep.
that I found fascinating.
Sorry,
Loved
we're
it.
geeking about
geeking
psych
out
stuff.
now, but psych-
No, but you're right, because
It is.
when I was ever thinking about where I would go, what type of psychology, because when you're in school, specifically in masters, and they give you all the various methodologies for psychology, you can choose, like, what do I want to be? The specialist in cognitive behavioral, Adlerian, right? And I always felt like cognitive behavioral, this isn't just a weird plug or whatever, it felt more natural to what we are, because we have thoughts, and oftentimes they're automatic and they're negative. How do you fix that, right? Well, there is a relationship between what you're thinking and what you're doing, cognitive behavioral,
Absolutely.
right? And so there was a way that you would try to help people fix the negative automatic thoughts.
Yeah.
And I think you're so right in saying that there are thoughts that you're just gonna right in your head. I mean, all of us, like, if we were honest, I think if all of us were honest in this moment, was there ever a moment when we legitimately had suicidal ideations?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
100%.
100%.
Absolutely.
Right.
We all have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's scary to admit that in public, and scary just to admit that to yourself, because in that moment you
Yeah.
feel like, well, hold on. So my entire being seems to be against myself. That's not fun to think, right? But it's okay, because you're in control of your thoughts.
Yeah.
Just because you think a thing doesn't mean the action must follow.
Correct.
And that's the hard part. But it's also in leadership and development.
Absolutely.
The better thoughts you have, the better actions will follow. And I think it's so great what you said. It was so pertinent that your thoughts aren't in control of you, but you can use them
You can use the thoughts.
to your benefit. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the thing is, people will say, a lot of people will say thoughts are things. They only become things when you take action and give it power.
Yeah.
You can decide. You have a freedom of choice.
Yeah.
God gave us a beautiful gift of choice. We hardly use it.
Well, you said a beautiful thing earlier too. A thought is nothing. A thought. Well, he said this earlier. This is impactful. A thought is nothing more, than obviously a thought.
You thought,
You don't believe in anything.
no.
You have to find the truth. So therefore, that thought no longer matters to you.
And I have a little saying that I say about the truth.
That was good.
The truth is the truth no matter what, but it's merely the perception of truth that can be manipulated by man. The real truth is divine and cannot be manipulated.
I need to get a tattoo with that.
Well, because, I mean, and like,
It's the truth. I mean,
It is the truth.
you have
It's
to have
perception.
something outside of yourself
Absolutely.
that grounds you. You're totally right. But okay, I want to make sure I want to plug though, because you have all these things. Where do you feel like? Because I think you said you have a website, but where do you feel like people can find you best, support you, consume your content?
I have a new website I've just developed. It's 21v.org.
Okay.
But you can also go on LinkedIn and connect with me on LinkedIn.
He's
and
great
I'll
on
chat with
LinkedIn,
you.
yeah.
I'll chat with you on LinkedIn. I'm not big one for Facebook. Don't like it. Plug on Fit or any of them ones. So you really want to get me and chat to me, then you can chat to me on LinkedIn.
So, and if someone wanted to, let's say, like book you for speaking, coaching, or even just like, hey, writing critique, right?
Anything like that. If anybody, just go to my website, send me a message, and I'll get back in touch with you. If it's whether it's coaching, whether it's speaking, lectures, workshops, anything you want to do, just connect with me. I'm very open to, and also, I'm very open when people have a problem. I don't have a great deal of time, but if you really have a problem and you reach out to me and I can feel your heart,
Yeah.
I'll make time to
or
help
bombard you in a coffee
Yeah.
shop and make you and make you help
Oh, no,
someone.
see, you took
That was
mine.
good, though. That was good.
No, I was just getting ready to say I'm just going to use a perk of happened to, being on a show where I'm just going to,
Yeah.
I'm just going to call him.
Yeah. Or just being like, hey, help me with this mantra thing. How do I get it even better?
We did that.
We did. There's a reason why my LinkedIn headline is different.
Headline
because
has changed, ladies and gentlemen. If you noticed
I was
that
wondering
one.
why some of the
Yeah.
polls were coming up.
I
Your
was
new
just
thoughts.
saying, I was
was-
sitting
that
with
was
him
that
and he made me
conversation.
change it. I was like, dang it, he's so
Even
good.
I'm going to do it now.
I
I'm doing
did.
it now,
I
I'm doing
wondered.
it now.
I kind of looked and I went, he's thinking a little.
It's the power of having a
raw.
good mentor.
Like,
Sorry
wow.
that we're yelling so much. He's dying over there. He's like, please, you're clipping. All right. So I want to be good about time and everything. Is there anything else like that hot on your mind as you kind of were rolling up here, or even as we were talking to Maddie, that you kind of came to mind that you felt like, I just have to share this?
You know what? I would say that I've learned more wisdom from a tramp than I have from someone who has status, who has money, and who has power. recognize that the people around you will always have something to teach you, and be open to it.
Tell them.
Be open to being taught. Be open to always be the student. Be open to be the beginner, the white belt, not the black belt. Then life will become a lot easier for you. And remember, the tramp that you meet in the street might be able to pray a lot better than you. So open your heart.
The first will be last, the last will be first. Can I ask a question?
Yes,
I just have a question. When in your life did you develop this heart for what you do?
I from a very, very young age, I've always had a spiritual outlook. So when my uncle was a monk in a monastery, and so when I was young, I spent all my time in the monastery. I wanted to be a priest, and and I went through all that, and I spent time with monks and nuns and Buddhists and you name it, everybody. Yeah. And prisoners would come up from the prison, and everybody was frightened of them, but I would go out and feed them and talk to them and learn from them, and I never once judged them or seen them as any different from me. And then, when I was eventually going to go and take orders, my uncle had passed, and they said, you should go out in the world and come back if you want to. And so I joined the army instead. So
nice turn.
I went total 360.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean,
You're 180. Sorry.
Well, no, I just had to ask that because you come from a very deep and well thought out. I mean, obviously, this isn't a new thought in your head. This has been researched and hashed and hashed.
Yeah, deep roots.
And so I knew it. I knew it had to come from something childhood. To really turn that key.
I had a weird childhood. While people were playing football and reading comic books and things, I was reading like a vocation to the ministry. I was reading I was reading like my mother thought there was something wrong with me, And my little brother, the cops would come up the street, and Daniel would you get a clout in the ear, and the priest would come up the street, and I would get a clout in the ear.
Oh, that's funny.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Somewhere there's a joke about a priest and a cop walking to a bar, and it's just to get you and your brother. All right.
Yeah.
So thank you, John, so much for being on this podcast. You were a joy to have on.
It was awesome.
As always, Andy, thank you for being a guest on this podcast. This was great. Seriously, if you want to follow him, like you said, LinkedIn, find him there, find the website. It is 21v.org.
Yep.
And so thank you, guys. Thank you so much for listening. We hope that this has been an encouragement to you, and we hope that you have a wonderful day. See you later.
God bless.